That is a big number. It's a big, scary number when you work in a space where there's communities around you and you realize that that's the number driving the things that we're doing. So the 9 billion, 2 billion more than we have today on this planet, will be joining us in the next couple of years. When you're in engineering, you think about closed systems and you're into problem solving. So it started with solar cars, driving around the continent, meeting interesting people, and realizing that the solutions that we are bringing are wholly inadequate, and that the problems that we are facing is not around electric vehicles, that really the need is around hunger and the basic needs that our communities face. And when you're teaching young minds, you have to keep them engaged and you have to respond to what they want to do. And solving for 9 billion is what engineers today are working towards. And you have to create a space where they can apply themselves to respond to that call. What is the solution today in Africa? So those are staggering numbers. 795 million people went hungry last year. So these are massive numbers that are really great when you're driving the political urgency for solving for hunger. It becomes a bit closer to home when you look at the 233 million that are in sub-Saharan Africa, on our continent, as we just saw. Again, it's numbers that are abstract, that are difficult to understand. And in South Africa, we debate and we try and pin down this number when it depends on who's talking. It fluctuates around 14 million to 7 million people hungry in our country today. That's a massive, massive number, especially if you look around us and where we are. And these numbers are acute in cities where people don't have access to food, they don't have access to their own kind of food, and we have this massive influx of people coming to the city. So we learned about framing problems and applying design thinking and really figuring out how to focus our young engineers' minds on these problems. And we started off with infrastructure solutions, and we very soon realized that that's not what we need. We went back to the drawing board. We really had to go back and look at how do we solve the agriculture issues, the health issues, the cost of hunger issues, the effect of stunting on the educational system, on youth employment, on our economic development, and how do we get engineers to participate in this conversation, because we were stuck building solar cars and focusing on the wrong things, and really pulling our minds towards these business models. So that was actually a couple of hours working with students trying to map the solution and finding that solution and trying to frame this wicked problem. Now, a wicked problem doesn't have one single cause or end state that you can arrive at. And it doesn't require one single solution. It requires an integrated solution where different people come together to solve for that problem. Now, I have a confession to make. I haven't planted something since like grade school when you have to do the little bean in the jar. And only the strong will survive in my garden. Now, the same is true when you farm with people's networks. We've been connecting and loosely forming a movement around food in different sectors of our university, with NGOs, with local government, and bringing together the people that we needed to find a solution to that problem. And it's taken us a couple of months, and we think we might have clinched it. We think we've got a good solution to put out on the table to disrupt this industry. But we first had to find the data. So it is very much a data-driven solution that you have to find. When a problem is this complex, you need to have as much information available in areas where there is little information. So when you go into the township areas, people aren't just swiping cards and have loyalty cards where you can track what they're consuming and how it's working. So we needed to find ways and means to get to those micro-data situations where there is no data. And we developed the systems that we needed based around agriculture. So we do many projects, and agriculture is one of the big themes that we work on, but it's really around energy, food, waste, circular economy, access to information, connectivity, access to free Wi-Fi, and driving these solutions. But at the heart of this, we realized that in South Africa, we have a very big commodity, young people waiting around for an opportunity that are entrepreneurial, determined, committed, and so passionate about their communities and solutions that they are here to help us solve this problem. So we worked on a project called the Digital Ambassadors Program, where we trained up a bunch of kids to teach people how to use the city's free Wi-Fi. And in that process, we picked up a couple of things and learned a few new tricks that we applied then in this solving for hunger and solving at scale. So we had to develop the tools to geolocate and manage fieldwork at scale, using local kids from the community, arming them with smartphones, and sending them out to do the work and finding those numbers that we need, and having that data available that we so desperately wanted to get. We've done a couple of projects, and just to give you a sense of the scale, in about 10 weeks, we managed to find 80,000 township enterprises in Gauteng. And to get close to those numbers, the only study close to that would either be using census data from 2011 or a study that took 5 years to reach 5,000 enterprises. So by partnering with the community and really making them part of our team, being embedded humanists in this problem, we could reframe the problem of food and work with the community. So the Youth Agri Initiative was our first project where we started using GIS data. So I'm a mechanical engineer. We don't do this in engineering normally. But we realized we needed a solution, and in this network of people that we were working in, we could find all the right solutions. So we partnered with 28 young people from Ivory Park, and we head down Freedom Park. We were at Busy Corner. We were at the polluted banks of the Kalspruit, and we found every possible food garden we can get. And we found close to 800 food gardens. Now, we didn't count all of them. But if you look at Ivory Park sort of on Google Maps, it's this brown little dot in our province. And you can't think that there can be so much food there. The beauty of this food is that it's grown organically. But the people who are growing the food don't value the cost of their labor. They don't see it as something useful. They don't sell it. They don't produce money off of it. And we really needed to understand why. Because the infrastructure is there. In Ivory Park, as in every other region in the city of Johannesburg, we have agri-hubs where there's cold storage, kitchens to work from. So the infrastructure was there. When we started, we wanted to build building blocks that you could put down and thought that's a good way to get the engineers involved. But then case study after case study, we found this unused equipment, and we realized we needed another solution. So built on that, we went back to the drawing board, and we came up with a new solution. And we realized crowdsourcing is something that we should be looking into based on the data that we have. This kind of solution is based on social capital and looking for a social return on investment. So the university sparks and tries to connect and expand on the opportunities, and then we stand back and see if it's going to work. So it's very much action research, and it relies on partnerships, on social enterprises to start up around this space and to create the opportunities for us to create those new capitals and to see the benefits of it. We were lucky enough to find a young entrepreneur who already built an app to sell food online. So we plugged him into our network of about 1,000 farmers that we already had at the university as an organized initiative. And starting to pull together all these different organizations, we created this social movement around food and getting everybody involved. So this is basically how it works. Local young people from the community are armed with cell phones and free Wi-Fi in the city. If they don't have free Wi-Fi, we get funders to help get that activated in the city. A key part of our research is to have as many devices in our community so that people can have access to information and the tools that they need. You know, we're talking about Bitcoin and blockchain, and I just see this term that has faded in our minds around the digital divide growing wider and wider, and Africa is going to get left behind if we don't bring these solutions, not USSD solutions, not 10 years back tech. We need the best, the cheapest, and the quickest ways to reach our communities, and smartphones has given us this power. So if it wasn't for Wi-Fi and it wasn't for the fact that I could get phones cheap enough, the solution doesn't work. And the fact that we have these literally millions of young people available to do work for us. So basically what they do, we look for demand-driven solutions. So if there's no market, there can be no solution. And we go and plot and find all the food in our neighborhoods. Then, once we know what are the capitals there, do they have infrastructure, what are they growing, are they sharing it, we start mapping the logistics. But remember, this is not a logistics solution, it's not an economic solution, it's not an engineering solution. It's a combination of all these solutions together to get the opportunities for young people to play in the system. So while we are solving for food, we are also solving for youth employment and creating opportunities for them to participate in this new network. One thing that we found out when we were working in the communities is that farming is looked down on. It's not a respected job. You know, we have all these political statements around being a boer and all these things coming together, and for some reason, farming is not seen as a way to make a living. If you contrast that against our informal waste pickers in informal recycling, you've got 15 million people participating in the informal recycling economy globally. In South Africa, in Joburg, you have about 90,000 of them, saving cities 750 million rand a year in landfill space. Now, that is an informal economy, but it has standardized equipment. Those trolleys all look the same. It's got a logistics network, a distribution network, and a market that is driving the circular economy. Why does that solution work, but we don't want to farm? And that was part of what was driving us to come up with this solution. We had to make it sexy. We needed to turn it into an agri-business. It needed to have technology. It needed to be an entrepreneurial experience for young people to want to participate. Now, getting young people from the local community to collect the data is part of the key magic of the solution, because we're networking them. We're helping them to uncover and discover the opportunities in their own communities instead of all pulling back into the city. And that's what we learned in Ivory Park. Now we're looking at bringing in, finally, I get to build my containerized solutions, vertical farms, rooftop gardens, and plugging everything in. So we learned a lot in Ivory Park, and if it works in the townships, it can work in the city. That's a Google map of my trip on Friday. We started down at Harambee, which is a youth employment accelerator. It's about a 2-hour walk from end to end, according to Google Maps, but we drove, so we didn't try to do that. But in this 5-kilometer radius from the University of Johannesburg, we already have food gardens growing. We have a youth employment accelerator that's supplying us with the young people. We've started mapping and locating the gardens around us so that we can start this distribution network. We've partnered with Nando's and Bertram's and Victoria Yard. So Bertram's Farm is an agri-hub. They're doing pretty well, but they can go more commercial. And that's the market. So we already have a well-established market wanting to participate and buy. And then right at the top, we have Prof. Michael Rudolphs, who's been growing food for the last 20 years in Bez Valley. He started as a dentist in public health, and this is what has driven him to get to these solutions. And that is our response to how we can solve as a university by participating in these different networks. In about 3 or 4 weeks from now, we'll know whether or not we're going to be exporting these solutions to Spain and Finland, where we learn solutions in Africa and start exporting those solutions and disrupting the systems and finding new ways to do this. If Joburg will be a front-runner city in this research application, and we'll be partnering with the other 2 front-runner cities, influencing the way that food is being sourced across Europe. So we're very excited about that one. It's about being engaged. It's about engaging our students and the minds and the networks and the people around us, finding ways to create social capital that can be shared in communities to drive community wealth. It's about responsible research. So we're doing this as a university. It's not a business, but we've got resources. I've got 50,000 students at the university that can participate in this solution. They want to, they're there, they're looking for opportunities to participate. We have to create those environments. But we have to drive social innovation and entrepreneurship. If it is not demand-driven, it becomes charity. You're creating beneficiaries. You want clients and you want people that are finding opportunities for themselves to solve these problems. Then we'll be successful. And it's about socio-technical systems. I still believe that there's a technology solution for every problem out there, but technologies are worthless if you don't understand how they are implemented in society, how we engage with technology. Technology can only exist where there's people, where people and society can connect and find those solutions together. Thank you.